And boom goes the dynamite.
Alrighty, let's get rumbling. This is Daily Dive, the only live lacrosse talk show Monday through Friday. I am your host, Michael Karvelis, and on the show today, our top story will be, is this the best NLL weekend ever? There's a lot going on. You might want to check it out. Also, we'll be chatting with Graeme Perrow, the guy who does the NLL stats and, of course, the pronunciation guide. We're going to pick his brain about that stuff and, of course, the PLL controversies going on right now. And, of course, we're going to have our last brew be some more NLL picks for the week. So, reminder to follow Daily Dive Lax on social media. Instagram did pretty well yesterday, considering I made a meme page, one of the lacrosse meme pages, my take on Paul Rabel. So, I hope that's a good thing. It was a pretty great caption for that, too. It was like he made the Doughboy mad or something like that. I loved it. Great work by them and exposing us as well, which is pretty cool. Also follow Daily Dive Lax on Twitter, and in those you'll see our bios, you will see our link trees, and check out our store on there. The best way to support Daily Dive is to buy some merchandise. I got myself a shirt today because they have size 4XT in stock finally, so I was very happy about that. But go to Daily Dive Lax to check out all of that. So let's get into our top story presented by the Daily Dive Store. Here we go. Is this the best week of NLL ever? Reminder that there's a game tonight between the Buffalo Bandits and the Halifax Thunderbirds. So we have Friday Night Lacrosse, a really good Friday Night Lacrosse matchup, by the way. So many of these games could have been games of the week for our Daily Dive. Next up, we have a Saturday morning game. Again, I'm not sure if that was purposely done. I don't know if this was planned, but I will say that 11:30 a.m. Eastern lacrosse, not a bad idea considering the Riptide are just going from New York to Philadelphia. It's not a bad deal. Also tomorrow, that's on Saturday, of course. We are live right now. It is Friday, March the 3rd. But tomorrow we'll also see Desert Dogs and Seals in the Stadium Showdown, the first ever Stadium Showdown, something that is 20 years in the making. So that's pretty awesome. We also have some great matchups like the Rock and the Nighthawks, and of course the Rush and Panther City. Oh, and by the way, can Albany avenge a 20-4 loss from last week in just 7 days' time? And Monday night NLL. See, Sunday can be kind of annoying sometimes, but imagine Monday, there ain't nothing to watch on TV, maybe some NBA. I know there ain't going to be no PLL, so let's tune into some Monday night lacrosse. That'll be great action between the second games for those teams, the Rock and the Wings, which I'll get to later on. But let's, so I think it's going to be a great weekend. I really do. I love the fact that Hunsicker got hired to be the executive vice president of commercial operations. Will be a right-hand man to Brett Frood, trying to grow the game, and more specifically the NLL, because we have found out this week that Paul Rabel has no intentions of growing the NLL. In fact, he'll use other players to bring down the NLL. He'll use players from this league that literally play in that league to bring it down. It's absolutely insane. Yes, you do you, Paul. We are just happy over here without your sorry self. But I've already made my rounds on Paul Rabel. It's been a Paul Rabel versus Michael Karvelis kind of week. Am I right? But I am looking forward to this weekend because this could be a stepping stone. This could be an instrumental weekend to the long-term success of the National Lacrosse League with so many promotional stuff happening. I'm very interested. Now, I know we're going to have the attendances on Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday, but I'm interested to see how fans on social media react. I'm interested to see how much more lacrosse banter we see going back and forth. Because remember, part of the reason the NBA, the NFL, and the NHL are so successful because people talk about them. It's just how it is. And so we're trying to create those stories outside, or at least talk about the stories, not create them, talk about them, show those narratives that's going on in the lacrosse world, and we're going to get these guys paid and hopefully us too in the process. So let's get into our first game here on Daily Dive, and I'm going to make it be our Daily Guy game of the week. Now, originally I did say it could be the Stadium Showdown between the Desert Dogs and the Seals. But I thought, you know what? New location doesn't make it a game of the week. Then I thought, Rock and Nighthawks was going to be it. Then I thought the Rock had to play 2 games this weekend. And so I feel like, will their head be all the way in it? So our game of the week, without further ado, is the Saskatchewan Rush and Panther City Lacrosse Club. This should be fun. The reason I say that is because Panther City has been very good this year. They are 6-5. This game is Saturday, of course, at 8 Eastern. Saskatchewan actually won 11-9, just 11-9 in Saskatoon earlier this season. Panther City never led. I think they tied it once when it was like 1-1. But this is an interesting stat for you guys, and it's why I'm going to make my pick be the way it is. On the road, Saskatchewan Rush are 2-3. They're 3-1 at home. Now, that's not a big difference, right? What's a huge difference, though, is in that 2-3 area, although they have won their last 2 on the road, I understand that. The Rush have allowed 56 goals on the road to just 41 at home, and they're scoring about the same. For that reason, I'm going to first go under 23.5, and I believe Panther City does win 12-10. I want this to actually be a game where the Saskatchewan Rush think we need to make a trade. Not a big-time trade, but I don't like the feeling of the Rush being complacent if they are that team again. Are we just going to rely on Alex Bouquet to be consistent all year? I mean, it's working out for Rochester with Rylan Hartley, but even they had to make some off-season moves. What will the Rush do? I hope they get a lesson taught to them, and we'll see what happens. I will get into the other games later on because coming up next is our guest for today, our big guest by Fanatics. Graeme Perrow is back on the show. We'll pick his brain about how he got together the latest pronunciation guide, which, by the way, I'm sure is going to be fun. Also, PLL drama and sixes and some NLL standings as well. It's Daily Dive. Don't go anywhere. Without further ado, we are back to the Daily Dive. It's our big guest presented by Fanatics. Go to the link tree in our bio and check out Fanatics. We got NLL stuff with all the other sports. Check it out. Help out the show. Graeme Perrow is back. How are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Absolutely. It's not Renee this time. So bear with me. Just bear with me a
No
little bit
problem.
here. Graeme, how you been since the last time we talked?
Very good. The NLL season has been outstanding so far, so certainly enjoying all those games.
I agree. Let's get into your latest, I guess it's your latest project. You're working on a lot of stuff, I'm sure. But one of the most intriguing things to me as a aspiring broadcaster, even just as a fan in general, is the pronunciation guide. You had one last year, and then 2023 is out now. Can you first tell us what gives you the motivation to do that? Like, why do you do this? And also take us through the process of how much of a thing that is to go through with doing the pronunciation guide. Break that down for us, please.
Sure. It started in about 2011.
Ooh.
I was watching a Roughnecks game, and the announcer was talking about Caleb Toth, and Caleb Toth, of course, had been a star in the league for 10 years at this point. So it's not like he was some rookie that the guy had never heard of, or nobody knew who he was or anything. And I mean, I have an unusual name, and I'm used to people looking at it and going, "What is that? How do you say that?" So I'm used to that. But it was somehow different seeing, and people get my name wrong all the time, and I just brush it off. But it's somehow different when you're a pro athlete and the announcers are getting your name wrong. It seemed disrespectful to me, and it seemed honestly unprofessional. If you're an announcer and it's your job to get these to say these names, half a dozen times over the course of a couple hours, it's professional, it's respectful to get those names right. So when I saw that happen, I kind of got frustrated and said, okay, I'm gonna put something together. And I mean, I think about 7 people followed my blog at the time, so it wasn't like it was going out to everybody.
Right.
And it was kind of a joke, and I put some names on there, and then I put like Dan Ball, like nobody's going to get Dan Ball's name wrong, but I put it on there as kind of a joke and this kind of thing. And I did that every year, or I think every couple of years at the beginning. I'd add a few rookies and new players to the list, and it started to gain traction. And by the 2017, 2018, 2019, I had broadcasters contacting me saying, "This is awesome. This is really helpful. Thank you very much." I had players contacting me saying, "Thank you. People are actually saying my name right now." And so I started to make more of an effort to get as many players on there as possible and to get the names right as often as possible. So I started contacting the players. Steven Stamp got involved as well. It's something that's really important to him as well, and he knows personally a lot more players than I do, which is none. So he would be contacting all these players and getting it straight from them. How do you say your name? And so we make sure that those are in the guide as well.
That is amazing, because I was wondering if it was just as simple as adding the next rookie and hearing their name. But I know Steven Stamp is involved with a lot of those amateur guys, and even like you said, the NLL players themselves. So that is great. I just want to say appreciate you from a fan and a broadcaster's perspective. That is awesome. Because I'm sure it takes some time. It's nice when people give you some feedback, but I'm sure that's an awesome thing to do. The fact that you took pride in it early makes it even sweeter to me. So thank you for that. I think it's a fun story to be told.
It is.
Have you ever told a story before?
I put little bits of it here and there in the guide. Like I think at the beginning of the guide, I describe a little bit of where it came from, but yeah, not to that extent.
I feel excited now. I'm honored to be part of this occasion. Let's get into an awesome tweet made by you regarding the PLL, because before the Paul Rabel stuff came out in the last few days, there was the Sixes tournament called the PLL Championship Series. And you made a great point of, is it really a championship series if guys like Tom Schreiber, good Lord, pronunciation guy, Tom Schreiber,
who cares how you say their name?
Right, Dane Smith, etc., are not there? Tell us, I'm sure you watched more of it than I did. I personally could care less about it. What did it feel like not seeing those guys there?
I didn't actually see any of it, honestly. And it wasn't because I didn't want to or I refused to watch it or anything. I just had other things going on. I wasn't able to see any of it. and I don't want to take anything away from the players who played or the Chrome
Right.
who won it all. It's not that this was a waste of time.
Right.
I think maybe it's just nitpicky, but I think it's just the name of the tournament that I had a problem with. The PLL has a championship at the end of every season, obviously,
Yep.
and this tournament had nothing to do with that. Last year's PLL champions were Water Dogs. They didn't even play in the tournament.
Oh.
The team that won the tournament was Chrome, and they're not the favorite to win next year's championship. So what does this have to do with the actual championship? And yet they called it the championship series. So the Chrome was the winner of this tournament that featured different teams from normal PLL, different players, obviously, and different rules. So what does it really mean? I kind of think of it as if your team goes and beats the Buffalo Bandits, but the Bandits are without Dane Smith and without Steve Priolo and without Matt Vince and without Josh Byrne and without Ian McKay, and the rules are all different.
Amen.
Did you really beat the Bandits? And what does it mean?
Great point. That's an awesome point. It's like playing, the Lakers without LeBron. Like, are you really beating the Lakers right now? Great points by you. I have a question about the PLL. Did that seem like it was their version of box lacrosse? Because I know that they're trying their best to stay away from the NLL. Did it seem like to you Sixes was because I heard a lot of fans saying it was fast paced and it was this and it was that. Like, guys, it's the NLL. We're here in week 14. What are we doing here?
It's the NLL with the 2-point line, and part of me is interested that if they added something like a 2-point line to the NLL,
yes,
what would we see? And like I said, I didn't actually see any of the Sixes tournament. I saw little bits of it here and there, so I can't really compare the two. But it did sound like, okay, take the PLL, move it indoors, make the field smaller, have less people on the floor, and well, now you're talking about the NLL. And so if there's a 2-point line and a couple of other changes here and there, it does sound like that's what they're doing. But like you said, they don't seem to want to acknowledge the NLL exists at all. So it's almost like we just made this thing up from whole cloth and we're playing indoors for the first time ever. It did seem weird that way.
We all know the president's over there. Again, I'm not going to get into controversial stuff, but we all know that he believes he created lacrosse at this point. It blows my mind. Blows my mind. Let's talk some NLL on the field kind of stuff here. Because in the East, there is a 3-way tie. Rock have 2 games this weekend, and I don't think they're easy games. The Bandits play tonight. The Nighthawks obviously play the Rock in one of their 2 games. Let's talk about the Eastern Division Conference first. Who is your best team right now and why?
That's a good question. I mean, like you said, all the Toronto, Buffalo, and Rochester are all tied. Right. Maybe I'm just a homer because I'm a Rock fan and a Rock season ticket holder. But I might have to say the Rock is the top of the 3. They had a couple of rough games early, and they weren't terrible. They just got beaten.
Right.
But they're now winners of 7 straight, and most of those games have been fairly dominant. I don't have the scores in front of me, but I think 1 or 2 of them were, they won by 1 or 2 or 2 or 3 goals sort of thing. But a good number of them, they had the game in hand early. Buffalo and Rochester can certainly do the same thing, but they haven't been quite as dominant recently. Now we've still got a whole half a season to go. So things can change quickly. And like you said, Toronto plays twice this weekend, and if they go for 0-2, then I might have to change my pick there.
So 2-part question here. First of all, I don't know if you made your picks. I know you do another show for that sometimes. Do you believe the Rock can win both these 2 games? Like, do you see them doing so? Because I'll be a little tease here. I don't think they win either one. I have my reasons, but I just want to get your thoughts on those.
They certainly can. That's a good question. They certainly can win both. It's going to be difficult. The Saturday game is going to be a tough one. I'm looking forward to seeing Rylan Hartley in net. He's one of the more exciting young goalies in the league. And that's going to be a tough match for the Rock. The Monday one is going to be, I think it might be surprisingly tough. Like you said, Philly has been kind of hit and miss so far this year, but they now have Mitch Jones. They're coming off a loss to Buffalo, but it was a very close game. And I mean, anytime you can be in a close game with a team as strong as Buffalo, then you're doing something right.
Yep.
So I think the Wings have a little bit more confidence adding Jones and that. So, and the fact that I don't think Philly plays twice this weekend. But oh no, they do.
Yeah, that threw me off too, because I think they play tonight against the Bandits.
Yeah, so Philly plays twice and Toronto plays twice. I was going to say Philly may have the advantage there if they're more rested.
I'm stupid. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Philly may be more rested if Toronto's playing twice this weekend, but it sounds like they're both playing twice this weekend, so that may not matter.
Philadelphia's at home, I think, at both games.
I think so. Yeah, it's one of those weird times where they play both games at home in the same weekend.
Yep. Okay, so the West is a lot more wide open. I don't want to call it the Wild West because that's kind of overplayed. But in your opinion, is there a clear-cut? Is there a favorite in your eyes in the West, and is there any sleepers that you kind of like? Hey, don't wait for these guys to come up. You may not want to play them in the playoffs. Who you got in the West?
I think the top team's got to be San Diego. They're not running away with the West like some people thought they might, but they are certainly a strong team. Calgary is surprisingly strong as well. I think they have to be the top two. But the next four teams are all within a game of 500. And I don't think at the beginning of the season, if you had said Las Vegas, Panther City would be right there with Colorado and Saskatchewan, I don't think anybody would have believed you. So kudos to the Desert Dogs and to Panther City. They're both having really good seasons. Las Vegas started off pretty slow, but I think we all sort of said at the beginning, yeah, Las Vegas is going to lose their share of games, but they're not going to be terrible. And I think after 2 or 3 games, I thought, okay, maybe they will be terrible. But they really pull it together, and now they've won 3 straight, and they certainly do not look terrible. Colorado has been decimated by injuries. The fact that they've got Ryan Lee back. I think Eli McLaughlin is supposed to be back this weekend.
Hey.
So that will certainly help them. Losing Joey Capito is not going to help them. But if they're getting a couple more people back, they don't look like the champions from last year, but I think they're getting there. And Saskatchewan is hit and miss as well. They looked. I think I just said Saskatchewan is back. That the last time I was on your show, actually, I think I said that. And then they kind of struggled a little bit since then. And I think the big question is, can Alex Bouquet continue? Like, he was been excellent in the first half of the season. He struggled against Vancouver last week, but if he can sustain that first half performance over the second half, then I would certainly say the Rush are in the playoffs as well. And I think I might go with Panther City as the 4th team in the West at this point.
Is Panther City good enough to beat the Rush this weekend? I picked Panther City to win.
I think they can compete with anybody. The Rush is not the same Rush team that we saw in the last few years. They're still clearly an excellent team. But I think if I had to choose, I would probably pick Saskatchewan, but it would not surprise me at all if Panther City takes this one.
Great point. Hey, I do have to throw this last question for you because I feel like it's only fair since you're a Rock fan. Is the MVP of the team so far Tom Schreiber or is it Nick Rose?
I might have to go with Nick Rose. He has been outstanding. He's actually been outstanding in the last 3 or 4 years. He had my vote for goalie of the year last year, although Matt Vince won it. Matt Vince had an excellent season, so it's not like they gave it to the wrong guy. But I think Rose had an excellent season last year. The number of games, I think over the past 3 years, the number of games that he has kept the opposing team to under 10 goals is unbelievable. He's got a goals against under 10, save percentage over 80%, and either one of those is really good. To have both at the same time is amazing.
Yep.
And there have been a lot of games where the Rock have just scored a ton of goals, and it almost seems like it doesn't matter what Rose does. If you're going to score 20 goals, you're likely going to win. But part of that is that they have enough confidence in Rose that they may be able to take more chances and be a little bit more aggressive on the transition, more aggressive in the offense, knowing that Rosie's back there and he'll just stop everything. So I think that gives him a lot of confidence. And obviously in the close games, what he does is critical. And so I might give him the nod for Rock MVP this year.
Love it. Mr. Snooze out for the year, right? I saw he was injured.
I saw that he missed the last game. I have not seen an injury report on how long he's out. That would really suck.
That's fair. I feel like I just saw like it was be a lengthy time. I don't know if it was a year, but I don't know why it's in my head. But they need him back too because he's like the Ian McKay and the Courier in Calgary. So Interesting stuff there. Thank you, Graeme, for coming on the show once again on your Friday, which is always a fun time. Enjoy the games this week. Enjoy one of the greatest NLL weekends that I think we've ever seen. So thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Graeme Perrow, everybody. That was fun. A lot of knowledge in that brain. And sometimes you're just humbled, and that's one of those times. I knew the pronunciation guy story was going to be fun. I like the story that I wasn't expecting coming from that. Like he actually wanted to do that. And it was a startup, which is great. When I come back, let's pick the other games in rapid succession. This will be fun to do. Oh, boy. Do I have the Rock losing both games this weekend? How are the Wings? And do the Bandits still control the East? A lot to get to. We'll be right back. Thanks again to Graeme Perrow for coming on the show for the second time. Does that make him a friend of the show? We'll have to see. I already said that Panther City would beat the Rush this weekend 12-10 and gave you an under of 23.5 for our Daily Dive game of the week. Our last brew presented by B-Res Coffee Company. Go to Daily Dive Lax on Twitter, Instagram, etc. and check out the link tree where you will find B-Res Coffee Company link, or to search BREZ Coffee Company and use the code DailyDive when checking out. Tonight, 6:30 Eastern, Buffalo Bandits, Halifax Thunderbirds. Halifax is 5-5, nursing a 500 record. Buffalo's 8-2. Reminder, I am undefeated coming into this week. Just saying, like my last 17 I've gotten correct straight up. So, Buffalo actually beat Halifax earlier this season, 18-13, but that was in December. That was week 4. Josh Byrne, 7 goals, 5 assists, and Josh Byrne's back, which is good. Randy Stoss and Cody Jamieson had 3 goals each. Buffalo has allowed 51 goals on the road. They're 4-1. Halifax is 3-2 at home, and are scoring 69-50. But their defense is a lot better than it is on the road. For that reason, I'm going to go under 25.5, just barely. And I think the Thunderbirds upset the Bandits 13-12 to keep the East ever exciting. The New York Riptide, who are 2-8, good God Almighty, it's a 3-5 Philadelphia Wings, tomorrow, Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. That's right, a.m., not p.m. The Riptide are 1-3 on the road, and they're not good either way. They're not good either place they play. The Wings are 1-4 in their last 5, just straight up. I'm going to go with an over of 23.5, and I think the Wings get the home win 14-12. Jeff T might score 8 or 9 goals. I still think the Wings will find a way to get a win and fly high in game 1 for them this weekend. The Las Vegas Desert Dogs and the San Diego Seals in our Stadium Showdown. Well, the Stadium Showdown, the first ever, an event 20 years in the making, and what a game I'm calling it the rivalry for that reason, because I believe this is going to start a long string of seasons where these teams do not like each other, and rightfully so. They're very close to each other. So, both teams know they're on TV, so I don't expect the Seals to lay down to their competition, especially since Vegas already has 4-5 record, including 3-1 in their last 4. The Seals have been home or in San Diego for 3 games now, and I believe Seals win 13-11. But give me the plus 2.5 for Vegas. I know sometimes you want to go money line in that situation, but because it is 2.5, and I believe the game will be close, give me the doggies to cover the 2.5. But I don't know if I want to go money line. Game 1 for the Rock and game of the week here for the Nighthawks is the Rock and the Nighthawks from Rochester, Saturday night, 7 Eastern time. There's actually one of 2 games at 7 o'clock, which I do not like. Rochester they actually beat Toronto 11-7 in Toronto, but that was in week 2. Tom Schreiber had only 1 goal, with 14 shots on goal. Connor Fields had 4 goals, 3 assists. Thomas Hogarth had 4 goals. I believe the Nighthawks win again, 12-10, and I believe the under 23.5 hits. They're going to need Nick Rose, but I think Rochester does just enough. I can see this game being like 10-9 or 11-9, maybe a 10-8 kind of deal. I think this will be a defensive struggle, and this should be a very, very fun game. The Georgia Swarm and the Albany Fireworks. Remember Firewolves, not Fireworks. Remember when Georgia won 20-4 last week for their first win of the season? Yeah, I do too. They led 9-1 at the half. The game was never close. Lyle Thompson had 5 goals and 7 assists. Keenan McCardle, who just signed a PLL contract, had 3 assists, no goals, but 11 shots on goal. I do believe the Firewolves clamped down defensively this week with a new addition of Jake Fox in the lineup. And I'm going to go with 11-9 and give me the Albany plus 120 on the money line. And finally, will the Rock go 0-2 this week? It's Monday Night Lacrosse, 7 Eastern time. Mark your calendars down. Should be so fun. I think Wings win 10-9. Rock won 14-5 in Philadelphia in week 8. That was January 21st. It was over a month ago. The Wings are a different team now. I believe the Wings can pull off a win here. Again, 10-9. If there is an under that hits this week, it might be that game. The goaltender for the Wings is playing well. Nick Rose might be goalie of the year. This year officially, hello, Graeme Perrow. But I'm going to go with the Wings to win 10-9 in a defensive battle. I think Nick Rose does do a good job, which is not good enough because the Wings are going to score more. That's it for us. For our awesome host, Renee Washington, I am Michael Karvelis saying follow Daily Dive Lax on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Daily Dive Lax. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for Graeme Perrow for coming on the show once again. It's now official. He's a friend of the show on the Daily Dive. Check out the 2023 pronunciation guide. You don't want to miss that. Bo Hunter. It's not spelled like you think it's spelled. But hey, I just learned that recently, actually. Great stuff from Graeme. Again, for you listeners and watchers, for Graeme Perrow, Renee Washington, and everybody that contributes to this show, I am Michael Karvelis saying have a good weekend. We'll see you back here Monday. Bye.